It's strange how often the truth is spoken long before anyone is willing to listen. Lil' Kim, for instance, had been warning people about Sean Diddy Combs back in the 1990s, but hardly anyone took her seriously. She even spoke about what was happening with Biggie, and people dismissed her words as exaggeration or jealousy. Looking back, many of those same words sound eerily prophetic now that other artists and insiders have started speaking up. For years, only people like Gene Deal or Jaguar Wright were telling stories about what they saw, and their claims were brushed off as dramatic or bitter. But as more details have come out, those voices no longer sound so far-fetched. Kim herself once said Diddy told her outright that he planned to kill Biggie. She had a feeling it was coming, and that night, she was deliberately kept away from her husband's side. When Biggie died, she was told a lie about what had happened, and the lie stuck for years, long enough for Biggie's son Christopher Jr. to grow up and begin asking questions about the estate he inherited. The financial arrangements around Biggie's legacy were such that Faith Evans, his widow, couldn't touch any money from his estate unless it was directly for their son. Faith had other children, but since they weren't Biggie's kids, they couldn't be supported off of his estate. That arrangement set the stage for years of tension. Gene Deal, who worked closely with Diddy and Biggie, later claimed that it was Diddy himself who brought Biggie to Los Angeles, fully aware of the danger that awaited him there. People often debate whether Biggie made a mistake coming to LA so soon after Tupac had been murdered and tensions were still raw. Gene said if you asked 100 people at the time whether Biggie should have been there, 97 of them would have said no. Everyone knew the risks. So why would Diddy rent studio time in LA for Biggie to work on his album when he had Daddy's house, his own professional studio back? In New York, why would he put Biggie in that position, especially since Big was physically vulnerable at the time, often being wheeled around after an injury? Gene argued that Puff didn't want beef with the West Coast crews like Snoop Dogg and the Dogg Pound, and since Biggie was the one who had created some of the tension, Puff positioned him as the sacrificial lamb. If someone had to take the heat, Puff was going to make sure it wasn't him. Lil' Kim saw this kind of manipulation early on. She had been introduced to Diddy through Biggie when she joined Junior MAFIA, and she grew close to Diddy in the 1990s. But despite their friendship, Diddy never signed her to Bad Boy Records. He said she didn't have what it took to be a star and even claimed she was too pretty to be taken seriously as a rapper. At the time, that rejection didn't make sense, especially because Kim's debut album Hardcore went on to sell over 1 million copies without his backing. She later expressed how much that rejection stung, particularly because she felt he always had a way of holding people back while making it seem like he was lifting them up. The relationship between Kim and Diddy continued to sour over the years. She said that when she went to prison in 2005 for perjury, Diddy never lifted a finger to help her. He didn't send her commissary money, write her letters, or even visit her once. For someone who claimed to treat her like family, his lack of support was telling. She compared his absence to people who had no real obligation to her. Oprah Winfrey wrote her 3 heartfelt letters, sending her inspirational books to keep her strong. Tyra Banks and designer Marc Jacobs reached out constantly, even with plenty of money in her commissary. What hurt Kim most was that Puff, someone she had worked alongside for years, couldn't spare the smallest gesture of care. To make matters worse, while Kim was locked up, Diddy began working with her rival, Nicki Minaj. When questioned about it, he brushed it off, saying Nicki was simply his artist now and he had no ongoing business with Kim. Nicki even took shots at Kim in her music, and instead of defending her, Diddy leaned into his partnership with Nicki. This left Kim feeling betrayed. At the same time, she began realizing how many opportunities had slipped through her fingers because of Diddy's interference. She claimed she could have been on Sisqó's smash hit, Thong Song, but Diddy told her to play hard, to get, and the moment passed. An even bigger blow came when Michael Jackson himself wanted her on one of his albums after hearing her style. Producer Rodney Jerkins told her Michael loved her delivery and wanted her on a track. But because Puff was her manager, he had control, and for reasons she never understood, the collaboration never happened. Looking back, she believes he sabotaged it intentionally. Despite all this, Kim continued to show love for Biggie, describing him as someone who motivated everyone around him. He wanted people to succeed and was determined to build a better life. She recalled how he felt bad about Tupac's death, knowing it put him in danger too. Biggie was aware people were out to get him, whether over money, rumors, or revenge. He even spoke about always needing security. Biggie first met Diddy in 1992 after Diddy read about him in a magazine. Impressed, he quickly signed him to Bad Boy Entertainment in 1993, just as the label launched. Biggie's debut album, Ready to Die, became an instant classic. But by 1997, Biggie was gone. Rumors swirled for years that Biggie was planning to leave Bad Boy and start his own label. Gene Deal recalled seeing a contract Biggie was working on that promised him upwards of $62 million to start a new company with artists like Cameron, Charlie Baltimore, Lil Cease, Lil Kim, and Junior Mafia. Big told Gene that he was finally about to get paid properly, with publishing and marketing rights returned to him. That kind of independence would have been catastrophic for Diddy, who made massive amounts of money off Biggie's career. This is why some believe Biggie's death wasn't random at all, but carefully orchestrated. Gene Deal insisted Biggie's murder wasn't a drive-by. He said the stories told in documentaries and biopics were often full of lies crafted by outsiders who weren't even there. He described watching Biggie die as he tried to pull him out of the car that night, a memory that haunts him to this day. According to him, even little details about that night raised suspicions. For example, the SUV Biggie was riding in had "Life After Death" promotional stickers plastered on it, while Puff's car had none. Gene suggested that someone from their own crew put those stickers there deliberately, marking Biggie's car for the killers. Over the years, suspicions around Diddy's role in Biggie's death have never fully gone away. Faith Evans, Biggie's wife, has publicly defended Diddy, saying there's no way he would have had anything to do with it. She insisted that Puff and Biggie's bond was stronger than even her own marriage to Biggie. She explained that if the family ever truly believed Puff was involved, they would have sued him long ago. Still, fans remain skeptical, pointing to rumors that Faith and Puff were too close, rumors that Jaguar Wright later claimed were true. Wright even alleged Faith was hired by Diddy as part of a scheme to manipulate Biggie. For Gene Deal, the memory of that night in Los Angeles remains painful. He says Puff actually told him he didn't need to come to the party that evening, but Gene insisted because he had a gut feeling something was going to go down. He believed someone would be killed that night, and he wanted to make sure it wasn't Puff. Tragically, he couldn't save Biggie. To this day, he struggles with guilt, feeling that he failed in his role to protect a man who many still consider one of the greatest rappers to ever live. And through it all, Lil Kim was there, watching. She saw what Diddy did during Biggie's life, and she saw how he acted after Biggie's death. She knew he was capable of using people for his own benefit and discarding them once they no longer served him. For years, she stayed quiet, possibly because Diddy warned her not to speak. But more recently, people have noticed her shifting tone. She no longer seems to be on Diddy's side, and some fans believe she's finally ready to tell everything she knows. If that happens, the consequences could be massive. Kim was not just another artist in the industry, she was right there in the middle of everything. She saw the inner workings of Bad Boy Records. She knew the players involved, from Faith Evans to Junior Mafia, and she lived through the politics that shaped the East Coast-West Coast rivalry. She was there the night Biggie died and lived with the fallout. She also experienced firsthand how Diddy could sabotage careers, manipulate situations, and abandon people once they had served their purpose. If she decides to open up fully, she could confirm suspicions people have had for decades about Diddy's role not only in Biggie's death, but in shaping hip-hop history through fear, control, and betrayal. As of now, Lil Kim has dropped pieces of her story, enough to make fans listen more closely than before. With so many others speaking out, Gene Deal, Jaguar Wright, and others, the puzzle pieces are slowly forming a bigger picture. The question is whether Kim will choose to reveal everything she knows, and if she does, what kind of impact those revelations could have on Diddy's legacy, on Biggie's memory, and on the music industry as a whole.